Another year has gone by, but this one has been different. I feel like it's been extra difficult for most, with a new challenge every day. Darn it, now I need to buy another car. Hey there, my name is Sam Crack, and I think I've contracted the car owner virus. And to make matters worse, I buy the worst examples of what I think are the best cars. Lately, I've had a slew of various problems with almost every single car that I own. And at this point, the only thing that will make me feel better about the situation is buying another car. But instead of buying another useless, impractical, inefficient sports car, I think it's time for me to be sensible. This time, I'm going green and saving the environment with this 3-cylinder hybrid that's super fuel efficient and plugs into the wall, so I won't deal with another dead battery for at least another 6 or 7 months. This hot potato is over 60% cheaper than a new one because the BMW dealership and 2 other independent mechanic shops couldn't fix its overheating issue, but more on that in a second. During this season, it's important to consider those less fortunate. While it's been pretty rough for me, I know it could be worse. My friend Rich seems troubled lately, and it's pretty obvious why. He seems to be fading into obscurity. It might seem cool that you've got a write-up in a magazine or a newspaper, but these media formats are as dead as my Ferraris. I know Rich could use a pick-me-up, so I went online to buy him a gift, one to better his life. Now, Rich's most favorite thing in the world is chicken. Fried chicken. Fried chicken might be delicious, but in mass quantities, it can be as deadly as Rich's past electric car projects. I want Rich to enjoy what he loves most, but in a way that will better his life. So I searched for books on high-protein diets, and number 2 on the bestseller list was this extremely popular cookbook containing 50 healthy chicken recipes. Now, spending $13 on Rich is a bit out of my price range, but thanks to Honey, I was able to find him a slightly used copy of the book and save even more. While Honey is delicious on fried chicken, the Honey I'm talking about is a free browser extension that scours the internet for promo codes and automatically tests them at checkout, which personally has saved me hundreds of dollars this year with ease. I'm in dire need of a new battery charger. All I do is add one to my cart, and during checkout, Honey will pop up. I click apply coupons, and bam, I just saved $23 with no added legwork. It's quicker and easier to install Honey than it is getting in this ridiculous car. That's because Honey installs in just 2 clicks. When you visit joinhoney.com/samcrack, you can download Honey on any browser and start saving at thousands of popular online retailers, even including food delivery services. And at some shops, you'll earn Honey Gold, which is redeemable for gift cards. I'm up to almost 20,000 gold now, which is good for a $200 gift card. If you've got a computer, there's no reason you shouldn't be using Honey. Go ahead and click the link in the description box below, or visit joinhoney.com/samcrack and get this. People that have downloaded Honey just using this link right here have collectively saved over $1.2 million. That's enough to buy each one of these cars that you see behind me 5 times over. So I gotta give a huge thanks to Honey for saving my viewers a ton of money and for also sponsoring this video. Now, I bought this BMW i8 based solely off these photos and its listing details, totally sight unseen in another state. The listing stated nothing about any mechanical issues, but the car was priced at close to $20,000 off the next cheapest used i8 on the market, and with an as-is mark, which means there's no way to argue the car's condition when you receive it. The car has quite the history, but let me give you the Cliff Notes version to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. Earlier this year, it was repossessed and sent to auction. Car was offered for sale with a grade of 1 out of 5, meaning it's severely broken or in poor cosmetic condition. The only note I really recall on it is that it had a fluid leak. The car was bought by an independent dealer, and according to the Carfax, they sent it to a McLaren dealer, which I can only assume was to diagnose an issue. Shortly after that, the dealer themselves went and replaced a water pump. Shortly after all of this, the car showed back up at auction. The i8 was then sold to another dealer who immediately sent the car to an independent shop. That independent shop sent it to another independent shop, and that independent shop sent it to a franchise BMW service center. All 3 of these places couldn't fix the issue. Now, I personally spoke to the last 2 shops I was at. The independent shop said the car was overheating and they couldn't figure it out, so they sent it to BMW. And just like the independent shop, the BMW dealer told me the car was overheating, so they recommended an engine replacement. Now, this is like the equivalent of saying, well, my wife has gained a little bit of weight recently, so it's best to go out and get a new wife. It kind of makes sense, but not really. So did I just buy BMW's most expensive and technically complicated car with the blown head gasket? Let's find out together. No smoke coming out of the exhaust, which is a good sign. A little tappy, I gotta tell you. I don't know if that's normal for a 3-cylinder or not. so funny to think the majority of that noise is actually coming out of this car's speakers. BMW should have tweaked things so if your car is running rough, it sounds like you got a rod knock or something. All right, I've only been driving this car for what, 2 miles? And there we go. Engine temperature, drive moderately. So it's overheating. Luckily, when the light came on, we were already in the neighborhood and made it home. Who the heck knows what is going on with this car? But one of the things that I found out very quickly is the reason why likely it felt sluggish is because the hybrid battery is completely dead. So I've got it plugged in with a very cheap adapter I bought on Amazon because someone stole the one that came out of this car. Go figure. When we were driving it on the dashboard here, let's see if we can power it on. It was all the way down, all the way to the end. So this car had no charge in the hybrid battery. That will fix that problem. But of course, we got to dig a little bit deeper underneath the hood here and the rear mid-engine cover and figure out why this thing is overheating. So to do the inspection we need on the i8, I need a tool, and I'm pretty sure it's in one of 3 cars out here. Basically, right now, I'm focused on testing whether or not we have a good head gasket. It's only because of what the dealership told us now. It has nothing to do with the way the car's performing. Anytime I've ever dealt with a bad head gasket, you've usually got an engine that's running really poorly. Yeah, this thing might sound loud, but it's not loud enough to have me concerned. It's a little 3-cylinder direct injected engine, so who knows? First BMW at a 3. We did pull spark plugs in this car, but it's not in here. So we got to think what exactly we're looking for to diagnose whether we've got a bad head gasket or not. Number one, what I want to do is pull the plugs and check the condition of them. If they've got wet tips, that means coolant is leaking into the cylinders, and well, you're gonna have misfires and again, stuff like that. The engine really wasn't running all that bad, so I don't think we're gonna see it. But number two, we're gonna stick a scope camera down in the cylinder hole, and we're gonna look at the top of the cylinder. It should have a little bit of carbon buildup. If it's nice and clean, that means coolant got in there and washed things out. All right, BMW number 2, that is not a BMW. You guys are gonna think I'm an absolute disaster, but I do use all these cars. That's why I use all these cars. But BMW number 3, now here it is right here. This is a thin-walled BMW special spark plug socket. You can't take a spark plug out of this car without this. So we're specifically looking for moisture in the combustion chamber. Now we had no smoke coming out of the tailpipe, so that's a really good sign. You might be wondering, like, why are you going through all this? Why don't you just pull the dipstick and see if there's coolant in the oil? That's a great question. That's because it's a BMW, and on most modern BMWs, if not all of them, there is no dipstick. But we can pull the cap, and if you have kind of like a milky look on the bottom of your oil cap, that means that you could have, again, a blown head gasket. Now, if we do have a blown head gasket, we should find something in all these tests. If we don't, it doesn't necessarily 100% confirm things, but it almost 100% confirms things. So BMW i8 is a mid-engine. Right underneath all of this is where a tiny little 3-cylinder lives, and I believe this is what they're telling us is overheating. You know, this thing is kind of separated into 2 sides, the electric side and the gas side, so it might be slightly trickier to diagnose, but I don't think it should be a big deal. Now, normally you wouldn't just see a piece of styrofoam in this metal lid, you'd see a piece of carpet trim, but of course, the last people that worked on it weren't kind enough to put that piece of carpet trim back. So to get to this, all you gotta do is undo these couple turn screws, and should see our engine in just a second. This is a tiny little 3-cylinder. Supposedly it's like very similar architecture to what you'll see in a Mini Cooper. Ooh, this was nice and loose. So should be real simple to work on. 3-cylinder engine means we can give this a really solid inspection in a very short period of time. We're just gonna pull these 3 ignition coils right out. They come out with just 1 screw a piece, and you pull the electrical connector. We'll take the spark plugs out. We'll scope the engine, see if we find anything. Let's cross our fingers that we don't find anything, because no news is always good news. You know, I didn't even think to look under the oil cap. Nothing strange under there. Actually, the oil looks really clean. We got to run over to the garage really quick and use the vise. My spark plug socket just isn't gripping the plug itself, but I think we can modify it. But look who stopped by. This is my Ferrari tech, Mr. Kevin. Mr. Kevin Bacon, good to see you, man. All right, I tried. So basically what's happening, there's a bushing inside the socket here, and there is in pretty much every spark plug tool that grips the top of the plug so when you turn out it doesn't fall down. And the bushing is just too low in the tool. It's hitting the top of the plug and it's not allowing me to grip around the plug itself. All right, that was easy enough. I just took the ball head mount off the top here and I stuck a screwdriver in here and I just tapped out right here. It's actually a little bushing with a magnet in it. You see how it's sticking to the socket itself? Without this, the plug will get stuck in the hole, but we'll pull it out with a magnet, no problem. Now that you met my Ferrari tech, I'll introduce you to my Lamborghini tech. His name is Richard and he's a real, well, you know where I'm going with this one. All right, let's get back to work on the i8. All right, let's see if this modified socket will get it out now. Feels loose. Yep, it's out. I'll just use our magnet. There we go. And at first glance, this just looks like a used, dirty spark plug. Normal, no wet tip on the farthest cylinder, so good news so far. All right, middle cylinder. Again, dirty. That's a good sign. And first cylinder, same. With all the plugs out, let's switch things up to our scope camera. I've got this tiny little scope. We're gonna stick it down here. See what we got. Right off the bat, this is exactly what you want to see. See that kind of dark look to the top of the piston? That's a little bit of carbon buildup, and that is great. Pretty much all healthy engines have a little bit of this buildup. It's when you see a cylinder that's nice, clean, and shiny that you have to be concerned. Like I said earlier, if you have a blown head gasket, what will happen is some of that coolant will escape into the cylinder, and it will wash off all that carbon buildup. Now, the scope is really unique because there's actually two lenses on one probe, so you can change the orientation and look at a completely different angle inside the cylinder here. All three cylinders look consistent and the valves also look nice and straight, again with a little bit of carbon on them. So everything is good inside the cylinder. And while all of this is still disassembled, for good measure I'm going to throw the compression tester on it, and that will give us one last confirmation that we are dealing with a good engine here. It's going to be interesting to see if this works. So, seatbelt in, you got to slide in. Okay. Foot on the brake. Car is running. Start in the sport mode. Say 170. Let's move over to cylinder number 2. The results of our compression test were nice and consistent. All cylinders read between 160 and 170 psi. At this point, I think we've exhausted the blown head gasket theory, and I'm thrilled and relieved to find that the engine seems to be in really decent shape. But on the other side, I'm still confused as to why the dealership would recommend a replacement engine for an overheating condition. I think it's best we move our focus to the cooling system. Now, the BMW i8 is similar to a lot of mid-engine cars in that it's got a radiator up front, and then again, your engine's in the rear. But there's one key difference from, say, like an Audi R8 or a Lamborghini or Ferrari, and that's that the overflow tank is located up front under the hood. And all these other supercars, the overflow tank is still located in the back close to the engine. So you can imagine there's a lot of different pipework in this car to run coolant from the front of the car to the rear of the car, which should make it a little bit more difficult to bleed, but still, if we just need to bleed this car, well, it'll be too easy. And I just couldn't imagine that between the multiple car dealers and shops that had this i8 that they wouldn't have tried that out for themselves. So again, let's pop the hood, let's check out the overflow tank, and let's see what's going on in our cooling system. Now, I'll never be able to actually hear the water pump itself over this noisy engine, so to listen to it, I'm going to use this mechanic stethoscope. I'm going to put this probe up to the housing of the water pump itself, and if there's anything knocking around in there like a broken impeller, you'll hear it. Let me try and test it out for you. Sounds good and healthy to me. Even though everything sounds good, I did notice one bad thing back here, right here. This is the hose that goes right there to the thermostat housing. See right here? This hose is completely empty. Tight quarters, but I could squish it. Look, there's nothing in there. And if the system is properly bled, I would assume that this would be a little bit more firm with some coolant. Right, this whole apparatus right here is a vacuum bleeder. Right here is a cap that you sit on top of your overflow tank so that it creates a nice seal when taking all the air out of the system. I bought this at the very high quality BMW tool store, and well, I'll be honest, it's already broken. This fitting right here went in 2 pieces on me. I've rigged it back up, and we're still gonna try and pull a vacuum on this by just pulling right here. What we want to do is see this number continue to rise until it doesn't anymore, and then we'll see if the system is holding a vacuum. So while our vacuum's on, if we go to our thermostat housing coolant hose right here, you can see it's completely sucked all the way in. So all the air is now out of that line. That's a really good sign. Let's go ahead. And we're going to shut the vacuum on this and see if it holds. What we want to see is this number consistently sit right around that 25 mark. Kind of want to just see it sit right around that number. That's good. And then I've got the other end with this other valve into a tank of distilled water here. So we're going to start with water. Water is being pulled from our distilled water tank, and we're almost empty already. Geez, I need to get some more. Basically, it will continue to pull water until this gets down to 0. And I'm using water right now because coolant costs about 25 bucks a jug. Once we know that this is the problem or solves our problem, we'll put coolant in it. The system should be filled. Let's just check that hose again for good measure. And maybe while everything's open, we can massage it a bit. Oh yeah, you can feel water in there now. So that's really good. All right, we're setting off on another test drive here. Got the windows open because got the heater on and I live in Florida. Everything is closed up, all the coolant tanks and everything. I am totally expecting this thing to overheat again. I don't think we could get away with just a simple pressure bleed, but when it does, I've got some tools along with me to pull off to the side of the road and start to diagnose as quickly as I can while things are hot. No joke, I just hit the stop on the camera and we've already got engine temperature. Drive moderately, it's perfect because I'm in the neighborhood. I'm gonna pull over right here and we're gonna see what we got. All right, shut this off. Let's go through the entire procedure again and hope this thing doesn't take my fingers off in the process. What I want to do is see if this coolant is actually hot. Just want to open it a little bit. Let's see. The coolant's not even hot. All right, I know I'm going to hear from you guys, so I'll give you the warning. Be careful if you're ever opening up your coolant cap or bleeder screw. Basically, you only want to do that when the system is cold. The reason why I did it after the car told us it's overheating is because, think about it, if the engine is over temp, it should be really hot. But I touched the reservoir there and it is the outside air temperature. It feels like it's maybe 65, 70 degrees. And the little bit that sprayed out of the bleeder valve was also cold, which tells me our coolant isn't circulating. That might point to something like a thermostat issue. This car's only got 35,000 miles on it. So to have an actual hardware failure, well, it's possible, but something just isn't right here. And again, the history where this car's gone from shop to shop and nobody's been able to figure out is extremely strange. So while I'd love for it to be a quick thermostat replacement because it looks simple enough to get to, I'm very doubtful that will fix anything. Nevertheless, I think we're going to end up trying it, and I'm going to stop, take a little time and read the shop manual to help better my understanding on the cooling system of the i8 so we can get in here and figure out exactly what's going on. Now guys, if you're excited about a cheap BMW i8 like I am, be sure to hit that like button. I personally have always wanted one of these things since I drove one, and I picked this one up cheaper than what a new 3 Series would cost. So again, I'm pretty excited, but the prospects of me fixing it, well, they're not too good off the bat. If you know anything about this platform, be sure to drop me a comment, or you can find my email down in the description box below. Also, if you're not already following me on Instagram, where I'm going to post progress that we make to the i8 before anything goes live here on YouTube, well, just visit me right here. Again, click the link in the description box below. And guys, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching today. Until next time, we dig a little bit deeper into the i8's cooling system. I'll catch you very soon.